We're here to open every angle of the issues that matter to you, and you can be a part of the discussion by calling 212-391-2800. Now, filling in for Barry Gray is WOR's Jay Diamond.
Okay, we're all ready to go. Let me see if I can... Oh, there I am. Now that feels better. I think I got it done. I'm a little out of practice, and I don't know the lay of the land here, so I guess the numbers are 212-391-2800. That's the number. I know it because I listen to Barry almost every night. 212-391-2800. And I want to thank Barry Gray and the management here at WOR for calling in this old soldier to come in today. It was kind of on short notice. I'm not, frankly, as prepared as I would like to be or that I normally would be, but I really do look forward to speaking to some friends, old and new. But I have to confess to you, it's so odd because even though I've been on another station for, the last 4 years, I have worked here before, and it was so great to see the friendly and, in many cases, familiar faces of dear old friends like Joey Reynolds, Elena Nicanther, and Bobby Barrett, and some of the people that I worked with when I worked here last. And they provided a very warm greeting to me, and I want them all to know how grateful I am. And I'm grateful to really the legendary Barry Gray for also making this available to me today, and the PD here, the program director, David Bernstein. So it's very humbling, and it really is a privilege, and it'll kind of be nice to get back in touch with some of the people that I haven't spoken with in a long, long time. I guess this layoff, so the last time if I was at a microphone, I suppose, was late March. So I approached this epic evening with trepidation, but with a lot of enthusiasm. And actually, I'm kind of tickled. I really am tickled, and I look forward to taking a lot of phone calls tonight, so we'll get busy with that. One thing that was on my mind that I noticed in response to the Republican primary, and I'm certain that it'll be the same case with the Democrat primary, is the influence of the primaries, the election primaries, on the... Pardon me, I misspoke. You see, that's what will happen when you're out of practice here. I meant the convention. Watching the Republican convention, I was acutely, and I think, painfully aware of what I think is the destructive effect on our politics as a nation by the presidential primary elections. I was talking about that for quite a while. And here's why. I think that the primary elections give the opportunity to various activist groups who are a minority of the country, but very vocal, very dedicated, very energetic in their particular axe to grind. And it gives these activist groups a means of exerting disproportionate control on the national party. And what it does is it tends to make the national parties more intense. And I'm choosing the word carefully. If I say extreme, a lot of people say, well, they're not extremist parties. The Democrats will get upset. The Republicans will get upset. They'll claim they're not extreme. But they are more intense than the good old-fashioned, boring Truman-Dewey campaign of 1948. And I'm not certain if a Harry Truman would be able to garner the nomination of the Democrat Party going through the primary elections. I'm not also certain that Governor Tom Dewey would have been able to amass the delegates had he had to face the crucible of successive primary elections. Because the people that wield the most influence, as I say, in each individual primary election, are those people that can generate the most intense support for one or maybe two issues. And in the Republican Party, that might mean that the party is in my view, self-destructing perhaps on one or two issues. Is it the abortion issue? Maybe. And the Democrat Party is also in the hands of dedicated, in my opinion, far left-wing activists. So what we have since the primary system became entrenched in both major national parties is a situation where very spirited, very energetic, dynamic activists, whether they be on the left or on the right, pull the whole party to that intense direction. So you might have the whole Republican convention forced to concede that abortion is the preeminent issue in our national life, and then you have the whole Democrat convention more or less getting together and agreeing that the fundamental institutions and values of America are corrupt. So the Democrat Party becomes a revolutionary leftist party, and because of the fact that to win a given primary in the Democrat Party in a major state with big cities, you have to hone your message to various left-wing activist groups pulling the whole party in the direction of the left. And in the Republican Party, in order to win each individual primary election, you have to tailor your message in order to satisfy Pat Robertson or Jerry Falwell, because their followers exert a disproportionate influence on any given specific primary election. So what happens is you have, instead of two relatively centrist parties as you did in 1948, you tend to have two rather more, well, I won't say extreme, but I'll say intensely divided political parties hewing to the more extreme elements that are minorities within those vast, traditionally centrist parties. And that's where we are. Now, the other, in my view, destructive, pernicious influence on our national politics is the money. The New York Times had an editorial today commenting on the agreement between Bill Weld and Senator Kerry to make a deal to limit their campaign spending. Now, it's very interesting. The Republicans claim to be the party of freedom, and the Democrats say they're the party of justice, and yet both of them are 100% full of baloney. And the reason is, when push comes to shove, at the bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, both the Republicans and the Democrats agree heartily on one thing: give us all your money and don't tell us we can't have any private campaign contributions. There are going to be more funky contributions, more chicanery with respect to private money in this 1996 election being accepted by both so-called major political parties than there's ever been before. The loophole is soft money, where you're allowed to donate not to the candidate, but private companies and private people can write big checks to the, quote, party that will use it for mere organizing activities. But it isn't true, because this money ends up, whether in the form of street money or illicit payments, to the candidates and their candidates' organizations themselves. So I think if we're going to have a more ethical and more efficient electoral system, as well as ethical and efficient government, it might be wise once and for all to change the statutes so that the national elections conform to the model being built by the two men vying for the Senate in Massachusetts, John Kerry and Bill Weld, who agreed to limit private money. And this is an issue that Ross Perot speaks to. And I also believe Ross Perot, who has made campaign financing foremost in his Reform Party platform, is also tuning in to a very strong sentiment in the majority of Americans for a centrist party. As I said, I think in the past, the Republicans and the Democrats were both more centrist 40 or 50 years ago, whereas today, both parties are more, well, we'll use the word intense, being pulled in those extreme directions by various very energetic activist communities operating in both parties, who exert a disproportionate amount of power on the basis of those primary elections, where a strong voter turnout by an insistent and very dedicated minority can sway that election and, of course, choose the candidate. So I think Ross Perot is on target with respect to the issue of campaign financing. I don't think it's possible for us to really have ethical and efficient and streamlined government without getting the private money out of politics. And I think it might be wise to consider going back to open conventions where delegates choose the candidate, rather than a de facto system whereby minority activists, and I don't mean racial minorities, I mean political minority activists within each party, exert a grossly disproportionate influence on the national candidate. For example, I don't think in 1992, in an open convention of Democrat delegates that were not subject to the whim of the voters in the primaries, that Bill Clinton would have been the nominee. The party pros would have had too much of an interest in avoiding a party debacle, a party disgrace, than to nominate Bill Clinton. So in their own interest, the party professionals would have said, look, we can't live with this guy. This is going to be a bath in a viper's nest. This is going to be poison for 4 years. Let's get Bill Bradley or John Kerry or somebody, anybody but Clinton. And I believe that the influence of money and the primary system has been destructive. All right, I got that off my chest. I'll give the numbers. That's just what I talked about, but I haven't spoken to a lot of people in a lot of months, so you don't have to take your cue from me. Call up about anything. 212-391-2800. The world is your oyster. It's an open convention right here on WOR, and again, it is a privilege for me to be here and sharing the microphone and the stardust of the great Barry Gray right here. Hello, Frank. Do I have Frank? All right, I'm a little rusty on the controls here, but hopefully Frank will surface. Oh, okay, all right, I pressed the wrong button. Is Frank there? Or should we go to Marty? I don't know. We appear to be having some technical difficulties. Ah, somebody is there. I hear somebody breathing. Who is the happy young fellow?
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hey, this is Marty.
Marty, hi.
Hey, welcome back there, Jay.
Yes, thank you, Marty.
What I like about you is that whether it's Republican or Democrat, you call them as you see them.
Well, I try my best.
And it's an honor to be your first caller. I want to talk about the Republican convention. I don't know about you, but I thought it was just a bunch of real phony balonies. Everything was so synthetic. They all seem like they're phony, and they're reading everything. And I even heard some of them, like I said, on the teleprompter, to smile between certain lines. What do you think? Did you get that idea?
Actually, I didn't hear your last sentence because of some erratic movements I made on these new controls. Would you repeat it?
Yeah, I heard that. I thought when I was watching the Republican convention and seeing them all talk and everything, they seemed like a bunch of phonies. It just seemed very synthetic, and you know, that they weren't admitting that they disagree about things and stuff. And I don't know, I just thought it was real phony. What do you think?
Well, I think you're correct. I think it was a pep rally. Somebody used the term of art, an infomercial, but it certainly was redolent of a pep rally. The only thing missing, as I said to Bob in jest earlier today, was a big swimming pool and some baptisms at the end. I wonder. I can accept religious fervor from some candidates. I believe it's sincere when Pat Buchanan evinces a strong religious belief. But do you feel that the candidates they've selected really are particularly religious men?
Well, I think obviously that Jack Kemp isn't. And for example, I think the Republicans are making a big mistake, especially if they're really interested in inclusion. And I think there's a maybe a 10% out there of the vote that they could get that they wouldn't get otherwise. Instead of trying to ignore it, I think they should be proud and celebrate the fact of Jack Kemp's bisexuality. I think.
Well, wait a minute. Where did you get that idea? You went on some dates with him?
No. Well, there's been stories and
stories. I know of one individual who will stoop to any level to promote himself, and so he has keyed in on the so-called Jack Kemp bisexuality. But I certainly don't take that as any real newsworthy item, and I wouldn't concern myself with it. But I have a question for you,
Marty.
Are you talking Marty,
about? Yeah.
Marty, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you agree with me that activists have gained control of both major political parties?
Well, it depends what kind of activists you're talking about. For example,
media activists.
Well, something I would suggest with the
media agitators.
Well, I haven't seen that much of it, but what I would suggest with the abortion people, I don't know if you saw 60 Minutes the other night, but they did a whole story on how Bob Dole is especially responsible for sending tobacco to China.
I missed it because somebody called me and insisted I watch Beavis and Butthead instead.
Oh, that's a good show. Yeah. I like that there show. I like that Van Driesen there character.
Yeah,
there.
Marty, I have one question for you. Do you feel that the Democratic primary will be any less of a spectacle of tranquility and well-planned out aspects?
I think the tranquility depends on how many girlfriends they can line up.
Oh, stop being silly. All right.
But I really do want to make the point. I think, because there have been stories in Newsweek and Time, even the New York Post editorial, Lynn Nofziger, for Nixon, they're all talking about Jack Kemp being a bisexual or a homosexual.
I don't know anything about that. And I don't think it's pertinent to the issues that face the country.
Don't you think it would help the Republicans?
I don't know. I don't think it would help any. I don't think it helps anybody to look for dirty sexual laundry. But I appreciate your call.
Well,
now,
I hear you.
Thank you. Let's try Raymond in the Bronx and tune in to Raymond. Hello, Ray.
Yes, Jay. I don't want to talk about politics or anything. I just want to talk about how happy and delighted I am to hear Jay Diamond on the radio again. I can't express my feelings right now, but needless to say that I am standing here in my security booth on the job right now with a big smile on my face, as I am sure many other people are right now, listening to the radio, who have waited for so long to hear your voice again. And to hear you on the same station with Bob Grant again, that's a double whammy. I hope the powers that be make this permanent.
Well, that's really very kind of you, and I'll tell you something. I have been really touched, Ray, by the number of people that found ways to write to me, to get messages to me. A lot of them were thwarted by a lack of cooperation. However, some very fine people found ways to stay in touch with me, and I want to actually thank, as long as I have the opportunity, one that comes to mind is the famous caller Joe from Brooklyn, who found a way to get in touch with me after he was not accorded any help,
right.
And a great friend named Gary Lombino, who's gone out of his way to be very stalwart in my behalf. And I want to thank all the people who asked their friends or wrote to me or found ways to get in touch with me. Thank you all, because it really is very touching.
Well, I wish I was there right now just to shake your hand, tell you God bless you, and I hope we hear you every day on the station.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'm privileged to be here doing Barry Gray's show tonight, because Barry Gray is an inspiration to everybody in radio, and certainly he's been an inspiration to me in my life professionally, and I might add personally. Barry Gray went out of his way after I was terminated by WABC to extend his kindness to me, and I really love Barry Gray and look up to him as a human being as well as a broadcaster. Thank you very much.
God bless you.
Appreciate it. And Michael is here. The number, if you wish to call in, is 212-391-2800, and I think we have Michael now on the line.
Yes, Jay, good evening.
Hi.
It's great to hear you on the radio again. And I have to say, it was great to see you up in the Nevele. It was just a shame you couldn't stay for the whole weekend. You know, a lot of people wanted you to stay, but I know you have things to do. But the show you put on was brilliant as always, and I just had to say that it was great to be there that weekend. Calling in regards to a brief news story this weekend that I didn't hear anyone else discuss on the radio, or any commentary on the news or anything about this. And maybe I'm being petty about this, but we had a military escort plane in the Air Force One entourage that crashed.
The C-130 plane?
Yes,
yeah.
The cargo plane, which was bound for New York to deliver certain items or whatnot for Bill Clinton for his arrival in New York for his big birthday party. And I found it quite interesting and quite disturbing that Bill Clinton saw fit that to go to his birthday party in spite of the fact that I believe at least 5 military personnel and 1 Secret Service person died protecting this man, and he goes off still to his birthday bash. Yet when Ron Brown crashed, it was a shame, but we had two weeks of, from what I can remember, of unprecedented national mourning. I don't see why one should get this unprecedented mourning, and yet these people who've dedicated their lives to this country die, and he has the audacity to go the same day to New York for a birthday party.
Well, we can't really compare it. I'll tell you why. Because it would be a fair comparison if he had a $10 million check waiting for him at a banquet the day Ron Brown perished. So you don't know. Who knows? If he had realized that he had to forfeit $10 million, I think that's the amount he reaped in last night's cotillion.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't it $10 million?
It was a lot of money. I know it was a fundraising event also, in addition to being a birthday party.
I'm sorry, I lost your name up here.
It's Michael.
Thank you, Michael. So maybe I'm being a trifle glib, but I think there was a difference. I can't offer any explanation. I think the question you asked was a rhetorical question, and I think you're making a point, and perhaps it's a valid point, but I don't know if this is a man who would give up a $10 million handle for his campaign fund in order to pay homage to the newly deceased agents who were protecting him.
Yes.
I appreciate your call.
Okay, thank you, Jay.
Nice hearing from you.
Same here.
Nice hearing from everybody. It really is very pleasant to be back here taking calls. You might notice that my technique is a bit rusty. I'm not exercising the intros with the customary aplomb, but then again, it's been a long layoff. Florence is calling from Forest Hills, a lovely place to be. Is it the Gardens, Forest Hills?
No, it's right across from where the World's Fair was.
Oh, that's lovely. Hello, Florence.
Hi, Jay. I'm more nervous than you are.
No, I wouldn't bet on that.
I never
like my first time.
I never call radio stations. I am so delighted to hear you. I called all of my friends to tell them. The last time I spoke to you, and only once, was at your absolutely wonderful Christmas show last year.
Oh, you listened to that?
Oh, definitely. And I called to congratulate you. I now listen to this station all the time.
Well, I think that's very wise.
And I don't want to discuss politics, but I do hope to hear much, much more of you in the future. We all missed you so much.
That's so kind of you, and it really means something to me because I don't believe that the management over there that let me go, and I want to be clear about this, I did not quit.
I know that.
There has been some talk that I walked away. That is not true.
I know that.
I was terminated. It's just the simple truth, and I can prove that. But the fact is, I do not believe that management took the trouble to listen to the Christmas show you recite.
Well,
I think they got their opinion of me from other sources, but not from listening to me.
Well, then they missed something great, and they're missing a lot of great listeners now. And I thank you so much for taking over for the great Barry Gray tonight.
Thank you, dear heart. Barry was very magnanimous in making this available, as was David Bernstein and the management here at WOR. And Florence, it really is a privilege because Barry Gray, I cannot stress this enough. Having been on the radio now for 5 or 6 years, I know the achievement, the accomplishment of being at the top of this profession for one's whole career. And Barry Gray has done that. He's led the way personally and professionally, and this is truly humbling. Thank you, dear.
Thank you.
Okay, bye now. This is Jay Diamond, and I am here for Barry Gray tonight on WOR, and particularly elevating to be doing it on the Barry Gray Show. And it was so wonderful to come in and see my old pal, Bob Grant. And I think those of you who heard Bob promo that I would be doing Barry's show tonight heard the genuine nature of his kindness, really heard that he was happy to see me. I know it came across for me, and Bob and Barry are great inspirations not only to me, but for people breaking into this business. They really did pave the way. As we say hello to Max up in Larchmont. Yes, Max.
Hi, Jay. How you doing?
Good.
I thought, first of all, after hearing that first call, I think I know why Barbara Streisand didn't go to Bill Clinton's birthday party. I think she's going to throw her support behind Jack Kemp.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
duly noted, John.
And
what's your name?
My name is Max.
Max, yes, Max.
And I also think I actually noticed when Jack Kemp, he goes on that Crossfire show on CNN sometimes, and it seems whenever he's on there with Bob Novak that his eyes light up. Really, and I even thought it...
You sure it isn't the lights?
I even thought I saw the desk move one time, but anyway. But what I want to talk about first, Ross Perot, who I think I heard you're...
Listen, I know what you're driving at, but I have a question.
Yeah.
Would you be offended if someday a person of a homosexual orientation appeared on the national ticket? Would that bother you?
No, I think it's a wonderful thing. I think the Republicans should play it up.
Well, what if it's not true?
Well, the stories I've read, it does seem to be kind of... I think when Ronald Reagan was governor of California, that they had a special house for the homosexuals who worked for Reagan. And
wait a minute. What's
yes.
your evidence of this?
Well, I think there's a story in Newsweek and Time, which are as far as I know, those are not homosexual magazines. And are they? I don't know. I don't know.
Do you read Extra or Extra Update?
No, what's that?
Well, that's a left-wing magazine that I've looked at occasionally.
I haven't.
I monitor. You see, I am a left-wing media monitor.
Uh-huh.
I've made it my hobby in the 3 or 4 months I've had to relax. I've been perusing the left-wing press with regularity. I want to know what these individuals are thinking.
Well, you should have these guys from Extra on. Have them on the show.
Well, I'll confront them in a different forum.
Well, if you like the magazine, I'd like to hear,
No, I don't like it. I want to know what they're about.
I see. But you mentioned Ross Perot before.
But you know something? If I were a left-wing activist,
yeah,
who thought that the Republican Party was influenced by the Christians in the Republican Party, I mean the evangelical Christians who might find offense at a person's homosexuality, I would probably stress that in an effort to persuade Republicans not to vote for their ticket. But you wouldn't be doing that, would you?
Well, Jay, it's 1996, and I get insulted that people are always saying how stupid the Republicans are. And I think to say that they would be offended by Jack Kim's bi or homosexuality, I think that's
his
offending.
His purported homosexuality.
I think it's offensive to the intelligence of the Republican Party. I don't think they're a bunch of trailer park hillbillies anymore.
It's really not germane. And I know for a fact from your voice that the Republicans don't have a better friend than you. And I know they're happy that you're helping them out.
I'm trying to help them along.
Thank you.
Can I talk about Ross Perot for a second?
Just for a second.
I heard you were kind of supportive of Ross Perot, but aren't you upset that he wasn't even willing to debate Dick Lamb? I just saw a thing on the news about that, and he's whining about getting in the debates with the Clinton and Dole, and he wasn't even willing to debate the guy in his own party.
Now, the odd thing about that is that Ross Perot is the best public speaker working today. I don't think there's anybody who can hold the audience's attention better than Ross Perot. This is a riveting man. And there's an old story. You know, he was not wealthy. It's true. He got a job right out of the Navy with IBM. They had yearly quotas for their salesmen. He was just a regular salesman for IBM. He made that yearly quota in 4 weeks. That's how persuasive that man is. Because when he talks to you, he talks to you. There is no comparison in the way Bob Dole or Bill Clinton addresses an audience. Ross Perot is real, and he talks to you, and it's from his heart. So whatever else his faults are, I think he conveys emotion well. I think he seems as though he's genuine, and he's correct when he asserts, and tell me if you agree or disagree with me, I think he's correct when he asserts that money is corrupting American politics in both parties.
Well, of course that's true, but it's on the other hand, without that moneyed corruption, there wouldn't be a Ross Perot who's a billionaire. That's how, if you know about his history, he got a lot of his millions of dollars through political favors. There was an airline thing where he wanted a certain airline.
Well, what you're doing is shifting focus from what we know for a fact, that money corrupts the political process.
Exactly.
And now we're talking about Ross Perot, but that doesn't detract from the very important point for our nation, which is for the people to recognize that aggregate money is corrupting our political life and the future of our country. I thank you.
But there's lots of great people
like
Ralph.
And we'll go on and we'll say hello right now to John in West Harrison, my old buddy John.
You got it, Jay. Jay, I pounded that redial button, and I was not leaving it till I got through, let me tell you. How you doing?
Good, John. You were with me at the beginning.
John of Gecko.
That's right. This man called up when I was doing a morning show at another station, and I was ruminating on an article I'd seen in the paper where people were buying little geckos, what are they, like salamanders, and they can jump on a cockroach at about 30 feet and get him before the roach can scurry away. And beats raid, it's non-polluting, and it's ecologically efficient. And, John, you said that you'd witnessed such a procedure.
Yes.
When you were down south of the border?
Yes.
Where were you?
I was in Cuernavaca, Mexico.
Oh, were you hiding out?
Yes, I was on the lam.
Evading judgments? Paternity
on the lam,
suit?
Jay.
Yeah?
Jay, in fact, I thought that's what, not that you were on the lam, but, from our prior conversations, I thought maybe you were just pounding the pavement in L.A. looking for an agent.
Steady now.
Okay.
Well, I tell you, I wouldn't mind doing that. I think I'd be a good actor. I am a good actor. I might do that someday.
Absolutely. I always thought so. We've had plenty of good conversations about that in the past.
Yeah, speaking of which, well, if Paul Brandt is listening, maybe he'll get in touch with me and we'll do something after Labor Day.
And you also don't forego your talent as a writer. Oh, Jay, I can't tell you, it's so great to hear you again. It really is.
That's really kind of you. It means something to me. I'm going to tell you something. I didn't realize I'd love this as much. I kind of got used to not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So just waking up and not having anything particular to do that day. It can really get habitual where you wake up and say, aha, I can do whatever I want today.
Mm-hmm.
No newspapers, no jitters, no nerves, no check. Of course, I could get used to a paycheck, too, if one should ever come along. But I wouldn't mind stepping onto the boards again. You're an actor. I remember that.
Yeah, that's right. And often we've tried to hook up because I do want you to come down to a show one of these days. I had no clue, and I feel terrible that some people were able to get in touch with you, and I felt that you were on a leave of absence. You probably were. No.
I had a legitimate dispute. I will not go into the specifics of it because I do not want to embarrass my former company.
Okay.
But I had a legitimate dispute. There was a reason why I wasn't on the air. They elected to call it a leave of absence, but that was all settled. I had been presented with a new 5-year contract the new management came in and they fired me. That is what happened.
Oh.
So I did not go on a leave of absence and just forget to come back. The management changed while just after I had negotiated a new contract, and the new managers kicked me out. That's just the truth.
Okay.
I'm not particularly proud of it, but that's what happened. I was fired after having negotiated a brand new contract with the former manager, for whom I have a lot of respect. Don Balukas is a fine and decent man, and someday I hope to see him.
Jay, if you did not tell me, I would not have known.
A lot of people don't know that. But now they know. That's the truth.
You know, leave of absence, that's what we were told, and like I said, I based something on our past conversations. I thought you were looking for a talent agent.
That leave of absence was going to come to an end. In fact, I had a start date to come back, and Disney made changes and put in a new manager for that station, and the new management terminated me.
Okay.
That is what happened. But I was supposed to come back on April 29th. They wanted me to come back, and I asked for another week, but May 6th was...